Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a really fun holiday center step card to show you, and we're going to be using a really fun image from the Art Impressions collection. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm using the Art Impressions Cheers My Dears stamp set, and these little ladies are just so cute. They've got their Christmas outfits on, and there's plenty of really cute coordinating sentiments for this. And it does come with the die to die cut out those little ladies. For paper today, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. I've placed my stamp and the cardstock in my Mini Misty stamp positioner, and I'm going to ink this up using the Versafine Onyx black ink. This is a permanent black ink. And then I'll go ahead and press that out using the STAMPendable stamp press. So now we can go ahead and do some coloring. We're going to be using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens to do our coloring. And I've laid out my color palette. So I went ahead and decided on that and realized that it was very similar to the color palette on the packaging. So I'm going to lay that right next to my image and kind of follow along, just changing up things here and there. But as I always say, the packaging from Art Impressions is just so great. It gives you all kinds of great ideas for your colors and great ideas for your shadowing and highlights. So it's really simple and easy if you want to just lay that right down next to what you're working on and follow along. I'll be listing all the colors we're using in the upper left-hand corner as we go along. And also keep in mind that all the products I'm using today are listed down below and also on my blog, so you can check that out anytime. What I'll do is put on a little bit of music and I'll meet you on the other side, and then we can take a look at how to put together this center step card. I'll give you all the dimensions and measurements that you're going to need and show you exactly where to do your cutting and folding. So again, I'll put on some music and I'll see you shortly. So let me give you a closer look at the finished coloring. And now we can go ahead and add a few more details to these little ladies. So I've got my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. This is a permanent black pen, and I'm using the 0.1 millimeter. It's a fun way to add a little bit more detail to your images. So I added some detail to her sweater and then to this little lady's scarf. So now I've got the coordinating die that does come with this set. I'll tape that down with a little bit of Post-it tape just to hold that in place. I'll run that through the die cutting machine. I'm just placing a little bit of scrap paper on top of that just to protect that coloring that we've already done. For my card base, I'm using the Lawn Fawn paper bag cardstock. This measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches. So this will be a standard A2 size card when we're done. I'm grabbing my paper trimmer. We have to make 2 cuts in this cardstock. I want to show you that the blade in the trimmer is right there in the center, and it's clearly marked there, those 2 lines. There's a line above it and a line that goes vertically and horizontally. And then we've got our ruler right along the side. So again, the blade's right there in the center. And so if you just follow that off to the right-hand side, that's where your blade is as you're cutting your paper. I want to line up my paper at the 1-inch mark, and for me on my cutter it's right there along the edge. And then I'm going to cut from the 1-inch to the 6.5-inch mark. So again, that blade, I'm lining that blade up with that 1-inch mark, and I'm going to push and pull it down to the 6.5-inch mark. So when I'm not pushing on the blade, it's not cutting. So in order to make that cut, you want to press down on the blade. Let's do that again for the other side. So I'm flipping this over, lining it up along the 1-inch edge here, and then I'll cut from 1 inch, pressing that blade down into the cardstock once I have it lined up, and pulling down to the 6.5-inch mark, and then I'm releasing that blade, and now you can see I have 2 cuts on either side. So let's go ahead and do our scoring. I'm scoring from the 1-inch mark up to that cut line, at the 2-inch mark up to the cut line, and at the 6.5-inch mark up to that cut line. So 1 inch, 2 inch, and 6.5 inches. Let's do that again. Let's flip it over and do that again. 1 inch, 2 inches, and 6.5. Again, remember, I'm just going up to that cut line. Now I'm going to repeat those lines at the bottom here just to make sure my score is on the same side of the paper. So when I go to fold it, it'll fold nice and easily. The last score I need is at the 5.5-inch mark and in the center. So from cut line to cut line, not on the outer edges, but just on this center panel. So I hope you can see that up close here. 1 inch, 2 inches, 6.5. And then at the 5.5-inch mark is just in the center portion. Now what I like to do is just get things started here. So those top 3 scores are going to fold back. And then I'm going to create a little Z fold here on the bottom. So I'm just kind of manipulating that paper until I get it to start to fold. And then, because I don't want it to get bent in an area I don't want it to crease. So I just kind of keep pushing on it and manipulating it until I get it to fold down nicely. So let's go ahead and use the bone folder and press those score lines. You want a nice crease on those. So let me show you again what I did. So these top 3 lines fold back on themselves, fold away from you, and then this bottom portion creates a little Z fold. So again, just manipulate that paper until you get it to fold nicely. Again, I'm using the bone folder to press that out. And you can see what that looks like from the side and from the front. So let's grab some pretty pattern paper. This is the Letters to Santa collection from Carta, and it's going to coordinate really well with the coloring we've done. Now, what's available in the collection are these enamel dots, this 6x6 pattern paper. This is a double-sided paper, and we're going to be using all of these colors here. So the little snowflake pattern, the two plaids, and then one of those florals. I'm not sure yet which one I want to use. So let me quickly show you the rest of this paper pad, and it is just so pretty. It's got so many really cute coordinating pattern papers. And a plaid like that there with the green could be used any time of year. It'd be great for a masculine card during the year, maybe a birthday card or something. And again, the cute little Santas and the candy canes. So you've got a nice little collection here, and even some little embellishments that you could use as the focal image on your card. And these cute little ornaments. So this is a really fun, festive paper pad that can, again, I think can be used throughout the year as well. So now I want to also show you the 12 by 12. This is a textured cardstock, and you can see that it has a little bit of texture, and it is also double-sided. So in the indexing there on the front shows you what color you get on the opposite side. You start with the green cardstock, and I've cut this down to 7/8 of an inch by 4 1/8. And for the plaid cardstock, this measures 3/4 of an inch by 4 inches. And I've done 2 sets of these, one for each side of the card. And those measurements are in the upper left-hand corner as we're going along. I'm including all the measurements today. I just think it's a lot easier to jump in and create one of these if you have all the measurements you need. So again, they'll be in that upper left-hand corner. And I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive just to glue these down. Now for this first one, I'm going to line it up. I want to have an equal border on the top and the two sides there. And then you want to make sure you place this second one at the same height as the first one. So wherever you decide to place that, make sure that this one lines up with the first one you've glued down. So let's add some glue to this panel. And here again, I'm just checking to make sure they're at the same height. You could use a T-square here if you're not sure, but I'm just going to eyeball that. Now for that center part of the card, I've got some red cardstock that measures 2 1/8 by 4 3/8, and the snowflake cardstock measures 2 inches by 4 1/4. And I know that's going by kind of quickly with the measurements, but you can always pause it if you need to grab those measurements. So let's place this right on the center, again up towards the top, leaving an equal border on the top and the two sides of that pretty craft cardstock. So now I want to create a panel for the bottom of the card. So I've got some more of that green cardstock, and I'm going to cut that at 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/8 inch. And then for the floral cardstock, I cut that down to 5/8 of an inch by 4 inches. And we can add this to the bottom of the card. And again, just centering this on the bottom section. So I'm just pressing everything out. Now, for the inside of the card, I am going to stamp a sentiment. So I've got 2 pieces of cardstock. I've got that dark green cardstock, and then I'm trying to decide here whether I want to use the snowflakes or flip it over and use that pretty green plaid. I did decide to go with the plaid just so my sentiment would show up a little bit better. The green cardstock is cut 4 inches by 4 1/4 inches, and this plaid cardstock is 3 7/8 inch by 4 1/8. Again, I'll glue these together, and then we're going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment. I'm just centering that. And for the sentiment, I'm going back to the same stamp set, and that says, "Let's get festive," but there are lots of other choices on here. So I'm going to emboss this. I'm grabbing my Pink and Main anti-static powder tool. I'm going to just lay down some of that just to make sure my powder doesn't stick anywhere I don't want it to be. For ink, I'm using my Versamark Watermark Ink Pad. So this is an embossing ink pad. Just going to go ahead and press that out. And then I'll ink that again. I like to lightly ink that. I don't like to press down too hard with the embossing inks. I don't want to get too much ink. So I'd rather stamp it a couple of times and make sure I get a nice crisp stamping. Now I've got my Ranger Superfine Detail White Embossing Powder, and I'm going to sprinkle that on and just tap off any excess. I'll use my heat tool and I can go ahead and heat set this. So once that's all set, let's glue that to the inside of the card. And then I'm just going to place a couple heavy objects on top of this just to make sure it dries nice and flat. So I've got a couple Misties, my stamp positioners. I'm just going to put a couple of those on top of each other and let that sit for a couple minutes. Now I've got some white cording. I was debating between the red and white or just the white, but I didn't think the red coordinated as well as I would have liked. So I'm grabbing the white cording and I'm going to just kind of wrap that around this center portion of the card, and then I'll tie a bow. I'm just sliding it up towards that fold line, and then I'll just tie a nice bow. And just to hold that in place while I get ready to tie the bow, I'm using my reverse tweezers, just pinching that down. It'll just kind of hold that in place while I tie a knot, and now I can go ahead and tie my bow. I fussed around with that quite a bit off camera, and then I cut off those little ends, and now I'm using my multi-medium matte glue. This is a clear glue, and this will just hold this bow in place kind of on the angle that I want it to be. So again, I'm going back to those reverse tweezers, and I'll let that dry. Now I've got some 3D foam tape. I'm placing that all around the back of these little ladies. I'm removing that backing, and I'll just pop this up right on the center of the card. I'm going back to those enamel dots that I showed you earlier, and I'm grabbing that green color, and I'm just going to put 3 of those dots right along the front there. And I'm using my white Signo gel pen and adding some highlights. You know I like to add these. It just adds a little pop. And you can also add some more details to your images with the white gel pen. You could add some stripes or polka dots, whatever you want to do here. I do end up adding a few little white dots down here on her sweater, kind of in between those little diamond shapes. So let's take a closer look at the finished card, and these center step cards are just so much fun to make, and they just look so great. It's nice when you have some coordinating pattern papers. This is a great way to use up your scraps. If you have lots of Christmas scraps left over, this is a fun little project to do. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.